Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is Daniel Bear, and I'm an event facilitator here at McNally Robinson Booksellers. And before we begin, I would like to acknowledge that we are on Treaty 1 territory, and that the land on which we are gathered is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, the Nunawak, Anishinaabe, Dakota, and Dene peoples, as well as the homeland of the Red River Métis. Additionally, McNally Robinson Booksellers, McNally Robinson Booksellers does rest on the land that was once occupied by the Métis community of Roostertown. And of course, it's my pleasure to welcome you all here today for the Winnipeg launch of the Cree Word for Love, Sâkihitowin, by Tracey Lindberg. And we are grateful to HarperCollins Canada for publishing this book and for making this evening a reality. So to give you a sense about how the evening will flow, immediately following my introduction, there will be a presentation followed by a conversation with our guests, including our host, Shelagh Rogers. And then following, yes, a round of applause. And following the conversation, there will be an opportunity for you to ask questions. So if you are here tonight, you do have a question, just raise your hand high enough for me to see, and then I'll come by with a wireless microphone. That's simply to ensure that you're heard on tonight's live stream for the cameras and the folks watching at home. And of course, I will be back at the end of the procedure to review how the signing process will go. But for now, I have the pleasure of introducing tonight's participants. Through the centuries, host Shelagh Rogers worked at CBC Radio interviewing authors about their books. There were some bold standouts. Tracey Lindberg's novel Birdie was one of them. She recognized Tracey's wonderful way with metaphor, and she was intrigued with the way that Tracey folded Indigenous law and teachings into the story. Shelagh asked her why she decided to write fiction rather than a memoir or a journal. Tracey said that you put precious things in safe spaces. Fiction gives you a little distance and freedom. Also, she said that journaling is surgery. Fiction is plastic surgery. And now this new book, The Cree Word for Love, Sâkihitowin. Shelagh is thrilled out of her mind to be speaking at McNally Robinson Booksellers about this book with Tracey, regardless of what kind of surgery it may be. And of course, our special guest tonight, Tracey Lindberg, is a citizen of Asniwachi Nation, Rocky Mountain Cree, and hails from the Kelly Lake Cree Nation community. She's an award-winning academic writer and professor of law. She's the author of Birdie, which was shortlisted for CBC's Canada Reads and the Kobo Emerging Writer Prize and the Georges Brunier Award for Fiction, and longlisted for the International Dublin Literary Award. This, her latest book, is a collaboration with renowned artist George Littlechild, and a stunning collaboration of story and art that sets out to explore love in all its forms, romantic, familial, community, and kin in the Cree experience. So please join me in welcoming Tracey Lindberg.
Awesome.
Here we are. You can hear me in the back. Thank you so much for coming. I'm a firm believer that the people who are supposed to be in the room are in the room, and I'm thankful that you're in this particular room and online as well. It means the world to me when people show up. I think I've talked in the past couple of years that it is a political act to show up, and that in governance, showing up is 50% of the battle sometimes, and I'm thankful that you're here. I'm happy to be on this territory. I try to think about what Sylvia McAdam calls the bundle of sticks. When you go onto somebody's sovereign territory, do you have the right to be there? Do you ask the questions about whether or not you should be there and what that feels like? And how do you honor that? So I'll tell you that I'm putting tobacco down while I'm here and asking for permission to be here. My elder said if you couldn't light sage in your hotel room, you put in your shoes. I got feet full of sage right now. So when that starts coming up, it's not dust. It's sage so that I am acting in a way that's useful. Every time that I go in public, I ask the grandmothers for what I'm supposed to talk about because I don't know. And so today I'm here to tell you a little bit about the start of the book and how it came together, and how George and I became partners in a work that I think is beautiful. I would buy the book if it wasn't me because the pictures are so gorgeous, and I would take it out from the library to be able to look at it. I keep thinking, what are they going to do when it's a paperback? Like, can you go black and white? What does that look like? But I had a friend who was only able to work through the book as an audiobook, and the graphic representation through the art was not available to him. He still thought it was okay, so I'm gonna say that I can endorse it this much. During COVID, I wrote to George, who had done a cover of a book that I had written with a number of other authors, and said to him, "Can I come out? I have an idea about a book that I want to talk about." And he said, "Yeah, sure. Come on out. Make sure you wear your mask. You bring your partner. My partner will be there." And we all sat 6 feet away at a dinner table. And he brought his entire catalog out, everything that he had available as slides, and said, "So what do you want to work on?" And I said, "I'll write about love." And he said, "It's been done." Which is kind of, if that's what you've been gearing up to be able to have that conversation for so long, it's kind of a wet blanket moment. And of course, I always call it the Cree passive aggressive. I was passive in Cree and said, "What would you like to work on?" He said, "I'd like to do a book on horses." I said, "George, I don't know anything about horses." And then I looked at my partner. "I'm not so sure I know that much about love." But I explained it to him that I wanted to be able to, when I wrote Birdie, I wanted to be able to write a book that I wish that I had found on the shelves when I was a kid. That was part of what that looked like. And here, I wanted to write a book that became useless to people after a few years because they were already pushing past it. I wanted people to be able to say, there's paths being broken here, but we're just going to run right by that and keep going. And so if I'm doing my work right, the work itself stands as it is, but also just allows people to imagine and envision all kinds of love. And so I said to George, I want to write about Cree love from the space of many genders, many species, many celestial beings, and all amongst each other. And he said, "Well, that might work." So I went from his place. I took 100 or so photos with me, or pictures that I had asked for copies of. His cousin sent them to me. And then I took, I think, 21 of them all together, and I divided them into seasons and started with spring as youth, but also youthful feelings. You could be 100 years old and have youthful love. And I wrote about antiquity and falling in love with the Northern Lights. But all but one of the stories were inspired, all of the chapters were inspired by the paintings themselves. And I had to let that flow through, but I didn't write it spring, summer, fall, autumn, fall, winter. I wrote it as the pieces came to me, and a lot of them were inspired by the feeling that the photos gave, the paintings gave of people. And so there are people who aren't in the room today who I will tell them that's your brother. When I see them, that I wrote about your brother, or that's your auntie, or that's somebody. I want people to know how they inspired it. But in the piecing of it together, the one piece that I had written before I got there is called A Hex for Colton. And it is about Colton Bushy. And if you were living in Cree territory and you're a Cree person, if you're the hair, Cree boy, not faces, however old, that if you were a person coming into the understanding of what happened in that instance, that there's an entire set of laws that were being broken. And that not sending a farmer to prison is the least of the worries that people should have because of the Cree laws that they were breaking. And what that would look like if they were enforced. And if we thought of them in the everyday as enforceable. I wanted law students particularly to not have to look to case law to determine what happened on that day. I wanted people to be interrogating the way that they think about law and understanding that this law is operational, valid, and ongoing, whether they acknowledge it or not. So that piece, I wrote beforehand, and I didn't write it out of the blue. I actually contacted Colton's family and asked for permission to publish it. I asked his mom, Debbie, if I could put it out into the world, and she said yes. And people should say his name as often as possible. So when you leave here today, I hope today and tomorrow you will say the name Colton Bushy out loud and say it to people if you're around. I think it's important. And I think that it's an example of how it is to truly love where you come from, to be truly loved by your family, and to truly love the life that you have, and what it looks like when there is no love, and what that feels like. So those pieces came together. I wrote what I think is the perfect chapter at one point, and I lost it on my laptop. I wrote it in the sun in Victoria. Like, what more could happen? It was right about it. But it was beautiful. It was to become the chapter that is the man that fell in love with the Northern Lights. And you're supposed to lose it if you lose it. And it became a better piece because of it. But I have such love and fondness for George's work as it sits within that. I also have such love and fondness for the characters that I feel a kinship with them the same way that I do with Bernice. And so at a certain point, you hope that the youth trudged past you, but that you gave them permission to say the stuff out loud that was difficult to talk about. And I hope that that's what the work does.
And I hope you enjoyed your evening here at McNally Robinson. Tracey, thank you. That's a very robust introduction to the book. And there are so many questions that I could tease away from that. But first, is it a little hot in here right now?
Why, what are you wearing, Sheila?
Why, I need to take my scarf off. So, yeah, just in case you can't see. There it is. And it's a gift from Monique Gray-Smith, not specifically for tonight, but I just wanted to wear it. But I wore a decoy sweatshirt when we were having dinner, and you noticed right away that I wasn't wearing the same sweatshirt, even though I had this on top. You're very observant. And it is true, and it certainly comes through in your writing. But just while we're talking about Colton, can you tell us how you lift up Cree law in a hex for Colton?
I don't know now. When I was writing it at the time, I was thinking that we have to actually plot this out and talk about whether or not we are relatives and relations with non-Indigenous peoples. We have to plot out and talk about which laws are applicable. And I went to some of the work of our late friend, as he is known in this life, Harold Cardinal, and Walter Hildebrand, when they worked with the Treaty 6 elders. And when they talked about the obligation that you had as relations, what that would look like, and when they sent those prayers up to the Creator, what was supposed to happen. And I imagine a world within which what was supposed to happen did happen. And that you had responsibility if you did harm to somebody's child, and that responsibility could look like giving your child because you had done harm. And what would it feel like to be the family who sees these strangers living on your territory and not acknowledging your relationship to it? And not just in a decolonial or anti-colonial way, but in a let's reassess and start having conversations about those laws as they are here and as operational, and just take it as a fact. So I hope that I did that.
Absolutely, and it's so much about restoring harmony, restoring balance, and family replacement as well. And I remember, I hate saying the late, but the late Harold Johnson lost a brother to a drunk driver, and his family adopted the driver, the person who killed their son. And I can't even imagine the level of generosity to take this person in and in fact love this person. That is what happened in this family. It's phenomenal.
That's I think that I didn't understand before I wrote the book, and because I wrote it during COVID. During COVID, my partner had a quintuple bypass March 20th when the world shut down and was in the hospital. I'm thankful to the elders Wilson for coming to take taking care of him at that time. Also, my nephews came to live with me, and I don't have any birth children. But because they came to live with me, I had to learn how to parent. I had to learn an entirely different kind of love. And I feel like there was this sort of perfect awful storm out of which love was observable and understandable. And I feel like that's a part of some of the stories, particularly within the chapter, Hex for Colton. As with a lot of the stuff that I do, it's told through a female lens. Female storytellers are telling the story. But the love itself is, there's multiple ways to understand love. Somebody said to me, in many ways, this is a book about what love is not. And I thought, yes and no, but it's also about redefining what love looks like when you are a cousin, brother, sister, auntie, uncle in one person to a number of other people. What does that look like and feel like? I also wanted to be able to create space for the narrative that the idea of ideal love or idealized love had to be interrogated, that we had to have a conversation about that and what that looked and felt like, and that you can raise people up with love, of course you can, but also you have to lovingly push some people out of the way.
Yeah. You wanted to look at love without boundaries, right? What does that look like?
You should see my Google searches. There's a lot of boundaryless searches there. I was trying to, in the last chapter of the book, I think is a good example of it. The last chapter is about a person who starts out as an earthworm, and a being that starts out as an earthworm and changes shape, shifts shapes into other sort of forms. So I had to search up all sort of animals and life forms that were non-binary, that there was fluidity within genders. And so the story starts with a person as an earthworm, but goes through other sorts of places and spaces where they love equally, depending upon where they land at that time. At the end, they end up at a garden party at George Littlechild's house in celebration of his anniversary with his partner John. And the party itself is all little people. And so I use the language the little people are queer for the chapter itself, because I want to have kids normalize the conversation. And if they already have it and they're advanced beyond me, so be it. But I also want older people who have been playing that same narrative over and over in their head that they want to be open to, but they can't quite get there, to say it's time. We can all do it. Anybody can do this. And you have the obligation and responsibility as a loving person who loves your family to create space for it.
Just before we started, I was talking about how much I love a microphone. Clearly, your microphone loves you. It just wants to get closer to it. Now it's found its place, and that's wonderful.
It's my cat.
I want to ask you about Azalea, and as we meet her in spring, I think she's living a very beautiful childhood. And she has an auntie, and I know you're big on aunties, who isn't, in the right line. But she can say to her auntie. I thought it'd be really fun if we said stuff to each other right now. Ready? Yeah. And yes, it was fantastic. Thank you. But tell us about their relationship. It's really beautiful.
It's patterned after my Auntie Donna, who says that she is my true mother. That she takes responsibility, but she fights with her sister Val to be my true mother as well. My mom doesn't have a horse in the a horse in the race. She doesn't care. Just go ahead. But the idea that you can transfer love through generations without having to speak it is part of that. But also that you have an obligation as a loving person to provide warnings where you know there's trouble. And so that's part of it. But the other thing is that there's no line between Azalea and bees. She talks about having a treaty with the bees. And I love that. I was gonna say, I wish I wrote that. I did write that. I love that she recognizes and acknowledges and normalizes the piece that there is a relationship with bees, that there's a treaty with the bees, and that she can understand that. Because I think there is a world within which we actually can, and there was a world in which we actually did talk to bees, talk to trees, talk with them. So I've tried to provide, in my understanding, the normalization of internature relationships. I have my aunties up on pedestals, and trust me, they don't deserve it. Nobody does, but I have my aunties up on pedestals a lot of the time because they are the people who indicated to me that resilience is bullshit. Resilience just means you live through it, and you've got so much more to be thankful for and so much more to build upon, that I try to include that throughout all of my work, I hope, but particularly when I'm talking about love, I'm talking about love between, amongst, by women.
And microphones.
Technology.
Krista Couture, who's a really great Métis musician, also a memoirist, said she hates the word resilience for exactly that reason, because it means you've been through some really serious shit. So no thanks. Yeah, and we just rather move on.
And move to something that's actually more, that indicates more truthfully what it is, that you have a diamond in your spine.
Yeah, exactly. I was really lucky yesterday, and there are a couple of people here, to see you in conversation with the unbelievable Son Valentine, who has a book out right now called, is it The Unbelievable? Unbeatable Son Valentine. And it was such a great conversation. It was really, really beautiful. Thank you, Sonia, and thank you for coming tonight too. But she got from you something I thought was really interesting about how Birdie, your first novel, you had grief in the driver's seat. And where do you put grief here?
So I think that I didn't know, I didn't know that Birdie had that ripple effect in the world that I come to understand now that it might have had, it might have. I think that what resonated with people, I think maybe, was that grief was the driver, and that it wasn't poverty porn or unremitting grief. It was grief tinged with deep caring. And so grief as a driver, as the way that I would say it now, and I wouldn't write that same book now, but I'm not in the same place that Bernice is. I say now that in this book, grief is a passenger and I'm driving. And that's still okay. In the next book, which is called The Grief Eaters, grief is in the trunk and I'm taking it to a second location. I only have 4 books of fiction in me. I think if I continue to work as a law professor, that's what I have. That's the energy and time that I have. And so the next one being The Grief Eaters, I get to engage more in the idea of Indigenous joy, because this has pieces of it in it, absolutely. It also has Indigenous pettiness, which I thoroughly love, and created a space for anybody to be petty about whatever they want to be. There's a piece in it where I'm talking about things that I love about people I hate. I'm talking about a girl dating a girl, and she goes over to her house, and when she gets there, she sees that she's been cut out of all the photos. And she says, total vulva move. I think in my next book will be filled with more vulva moves. I had all the hope that when she took off the scarf, it was going to say total vulva move.
We're going to do that, aren't we? We're going to get a really good run of those and get them going. No, that just reminds me of going through my mother's stuff after she died, and I came across an envelope that was called Dad Heads. And she and my father had split up, 25 years before she died, and she cut out all the heads from the photographs. And so to actually find the dad heads was like the best thing in the world. I love it.
My mom had this thing where I remember these things. They didn't have a lot of pictures together, but she had these sayings that I've never heard anybody else say. What do you think, chicken dink? And then, up your gorge, George. I heard her say. So if I have any sort of relationship with making new words, I think it
Oh,
comes from that
you
thing.
do, you absolutely do. And I think it makes me think too, like, this is a harder thing to do with digital photography, right? But I guess you can put cat head on top of a dad.
Or you could put whoever you wanted there.
Well, that's true too.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe she just missed her era. It's
Oh,
possible.
she did what was perfect for her.
She did too. There's another story from yesterday and your great conversation, Sonia, and that was like the motivation for you to become a writer, because there was someone you knew who you didn't particularly love. I don't want to put any words in your mouth at all, but there was a motivating factor there.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
Okay.
I had been writing stories for years and years and years and putting them in a dresser drawer,
Literally.
literally in a dresser drawer, because we did not have the hard drives. But sort of piecing them all into this place. And then when I came back from grad school in the States, where I met Alex, when I came back from grad school in the States, somebody whom I had met while I went to school there had published a book, and I thought, I'm a better fucking writer than her. Which is terrible. I don't encourage people to use that as your motivation, but I did say, I protect your right and defend your right to be petty. So that's part of it. I sort of pieced it all together and put it together in a binder and said, oh, but the real thing was looking at it and going, oh, this is the same person. Like I've been writing about the same person or in the same voice my whole life. I'm not that original, but I had written all of this from that same place. And I thought, in a way, I would never have known that unless that person gave me that feeling of competitiveness, which is a polite way to say bitchiness.
Does she know that you've had like a major bestseller and it was a motion picture made by Sonia Valentine, a trailer, okay, but
I imagine not.
no,
I
okay.
imagine not. It's not a thing, and it didn't have to have life beyond that moment. Did I search her? No. Has she written any books?
Okay, there goes my awesome. I love the chapter headings, and then there's like the summer of my serial killer, or I kissed pretending and liked it.
I went there. That place we're not supposed to go to. I went there. And I wrote about, in the text, you can see that the font is, as the person starting to figure it out, it says red flag.
Yeah.
Red flag, red flag. He has a dining room, red flag. There's a kids' table at Thanksgiving, red flag. Just sort of working through it, but also the thing that is probably not exceptional about it is that some of the things that I wrote, that he had told this romantic interest that he had, some of the things that the Pretendian had told, I had said those phrases before because you are justifying to people who don't believe you. And I think that for a lot of people that we are justifying, assuming that people don't believe us and that we're finding bigger ways to be Indigenous or ways to be more Indigenous when I'm third generation urban, when my Muslim ran the Friendship Center in Grand Prairie, when my life is as Indigenous as anybody else's. but I didn't think so. So it wasn't just mining, here's what I hear Canadians saying in the news, it's here's my insecurities that I've put out into the world and capturing them.
No children's table, right?
It's bizarre. We didn't have enough tables for starters. And also, people would, like when I was growing up, we would all just sit together. That's the thing. And the person, the pretending in that story, not only designates that, like in his home, there's a children's table, but there's other things that are going on there that sort of fly against the face of what she understands that being Indigenous is, and then she figures out that she's actually been a beard.
Which makes me think of chin hairs.
Everything makes us think of chin hairs at this age.
Right. But what better sign is there of a deep commitment of a friend or a niece or an auntie that if you're there on that hospital bed and you can't do it yourself, someone's going to take it out for you.
So in Birdie, there's this
Yeah.
piece where two sisters are in the kitchen table and they're in their cups. And one says, promise me, sister. What? Promise me anything for you. Promise me you'll pluck my chin hairs when I get old. Which is fine. But I'm at Kelly Lake and I've taken my aunties out there and my auntie said, I thought that piece on the chin hair was really cute. And I said, that was you. I heard that through the kitchen wall. Oh. But then she didn't even know it. To me, that's how hilarious they are. They also, my aunties, they make up names for people based upon what they think are English translations of Cree, like high balls on the bus. Guys wearing his pants too tight. It's in the line of Up Your Gorge, George. But they have this thing where they still do it and they don't even know, like it's become a part of their everyday where, oh, do you remember my auntie, Donna, she's my soulmate, but she's so shy. I have those days when I'm pathologically shy like her, but she is so shy that she'll say this. You order, I don't think that waitress likes me. And I think that sometimes, but I would never voice that. I hope she's online.
This will stay up for a long time, so yeah, there you go. I want to ask you if you want to do reading, but maybe don't.
I can. I think that I won't do anything. I won't do a chapter or anything. I'll read parts of things I love about people I hate. Because
Okay.
it kind of, I actually checked them off, things that I wanted to say. Pieces of my pettiness today.
And the other thing is, so we'll move to questions too, but anytime, if you have a question, you just, like, you're very welcome to ask, except during.
Thanks, Tracey. Thank you. It was the hope in her handwriting. This is the chapter, things I loved about people I hate. It was the hope in her handwriting, meticulous, detailed, and likely stopping to check her grammar and spelling, pages and pages of love, and her detailing of her children's births and firsts. A year or so for each of them with caches of hair, teeth. DNA detective me feels a bit rattled by this every time I open that page. But she has descriptions of their mannerisms, development, personalities. When I read them, I'm in awe of how much love and the kind intention she had for them, still does. Years of self-hatred and abuse have muddied my perception, but her love, I love. Weirdness is my kryptonite. She was strange, an outsider, and yet remained popular for a time. She had the ease of knowing what she favored and who she liked. In the beginning, I think that this was propped up by her innate sense of kind regard and respect. Later, with time, her knowing became soured and somewhat self-serving, more manipulative than her initial instinct for kindness directed. You can never call her deliberately mean. Her team, of course, shrank over the years. That service to self often carries weight for those around. I loved her commitment to her people. Her loyalty, once born and formed, was never questioned or questionable. She stands up for those on her team. She had the best laugh. Throw your head and laugh with mouth wide open. It's less hard to hate her than you would think. Oh, but she had the loveliest, ugliest feet. Craggy, thick-soled, dense toenails, sometimes reminiscent of sloths. You called them Earth Mother feet when she kissed you. She let my sister and me stand in the back of the restaurant in the Saskatchewan winters when my mom sent us out to get hamburgers. And smokes, by the way. She got being halfies and she was not even biracial, had the breath of death, but you could not get enough of her world observations you were seeing. Pretty people are the worst and the best. He left his wife and kids for a younger version of his wife and left the young children behind. He took a job after job that he was not qualified for and which he was offered because he put on a good show. Men and women and more than women fell in love with him at first glance. Self-identified lesbians told me they were hot for him. More than once. He was stupid and gorgeous. One day he farted in front of me, low and loud, and we sat side by side in faculty council meeting, unable to talk. We were shaking so hard with laughter. I love him for farting, for not pretending he was innocent of the crime. To be fair, I never did like this person. So I'm including him here principally out of pettiness, although part of me wants to make note of what it was like to see him work a room. What I did like about him was how people would step back, metaphorically and actually, when he walked into any white space. She is impossibly loyal to any person who identifies as matey, even if scandalously so. They talk about using, hooking, and scamming with shameless openness and forthrightness. She cut me out of all the photos we took together and kept the now selfies hanging up one time when she invited me over. He made me laugh harder than anyone I ever met. That really does notch up the betrayal. It made me sadly aware that happiness is a vulnerability to some. This is my sister Priscilla. I think she knows that. And I do love her, so I just used it for fodder. It's not. I think she could beat anyone in a fight. Sorry. I guess I was gonna laugh at her jokes. She has so much rage in her that I don't think anyone else's size, skills, or fitness would stop her if she perceived a threat. This is admirable. Probably more so when I lived the bar life, but probably, perhaps even in my can-lit life. She thinks she is funny. She is not. But her joy at her own personal hilarity is gorgeous. Oh, the wisdom in this one. They taught me to worry less about and build more for community, not to dwell in loss and to remember to celebrate victories in quiet, how to love sick people, how to create home in a tornado. And when she took to power like a white nun, I gritted my teeth and held it in until I could not. They were generous in their allowance of my stupidity as I learned about gender from their traditions. They had a neutrality about their engagement with everyone. We all felt well regarded in their presence. This one is hard to pinpoint. He had a thing about him. I still don't think there are words for this kind of predatory nature. He could smell sadness. I wish I could smell health and love in the way he sniffed out sad, and sometimes I feel scared that his disease was transmissible. It's odd to love that, I know. But when you recollect pain, sometimes it's just best to know that you have been seen. My grandma loved the fool around man. My mom loved the philanderer. These women taught me everything I know about foolish men. You can love fools who don't know they are rich and who continue to steal from the convenience store. He has tiny, delicate hands which he moves deliberately and decisively when he speaks. They look like musical notes in the air sometimes. I hate being followed in stores, being yelled at, from dark corners of Safe Routes home, being sneered at or honked at in big white trucks as I stand my ground. But holy fuck do I love Sâkihitowin. Winnipeg. It's not a person I know, but it's a personality. Lining up to see a Sâkihitowin bank teller, being able to get sweetgrass on a Sunday night, making one call to get a full room of people together and doing good. Sâkihitowin is your jerk ex who you fell in love with for all the right reasons, but whom you wanted more from and left. But it was amicable, and you know how Sâkihitowin is. Never say never. Thank you.
That was gorgeous. You're interested in liminal spaces, like yesterday you called it the borderlands. What is in there for you as a writer?
I think that my father is Swedish and Scottish. My mom is Cree. And I grew up in the borderlands. I think that we all do in certain ways, in certain spaces, that we occupy many places, many more places than we even know. But I also think that those are the spaces where people eliminate, eradicate, or invisibilize us. That those liminal spaces, those spaces where you are living on the borderland between community, between race, between gender, between orientation, between life, between death, that all of those spaces are places that people are afraid of. And that it's a privilege to occupy them. It's a privilege to be able to observe in them, from them, near them. And I don't feel obliged or obligated to write about it or do anything about it. But I feel like anybody who is occupying those spaces has a position of great love and authority within our communities. And maybe the obligation is to emancipate and raise that up again.
I wanted to ask you about language as well, and the Cree that is in this book. Well, starting with Sâkihitowin, right? You go to language camp.
I do.
What's that like?
I have to sit with the white husbands and the babies. So that's what it's like. But it's also incredible to be sitting amongst people who are that engaged and involved with their ancestors that they want to be able to understand them better. In the Cree camp that I go to, they teach us to pray and to sing and to laugh and to play cards and to do syllabics, all the stuff. But the stuff that moves me, and I should be with the youths, I should be with the kids, I should be with the white husbands. Someday I'll graduate. But the idea that you belong there no matter where you came from is really important to me. It's, I phoned home the first night, the first year that I went, and said to my partner, I think the other kids hate me. I'm not getting along with anybody. I don't like this camp. He said I was just like the kids who go to camp and then realize, oh, I love this. I can't wait. And I do love to go back. What I want to be able to offer myself is the idea that once a week is just far too little, and that we should be speaking around tables all over the place. That there can be Cree tables in Victoria. There are Cree tables in Victoria. There can be Cree tables in Coast Salish territory. And that if they're not, that becomes our obligation to build.
I love that. I bet Verna Kirkness loves that too. I think that's really, really important. We're past the 15 minutes or left moment. If there are questions, or just if you'd like to get involved in the conversation, please do feel welcome.
Arm wrestling, welcome.
Yeah. Sonia.
I want to say Tracy, Sonia Valentine at this concert. I wanted to, before my question, I wanted to say it was because of you and doing the book trailer that I started to learn Cree. And because you were the first person that ever made me really happy to be Cree. Well, other than Superman, but Superman wasn't Cree, you are. But one of my favorite things about talking with you was you mentioning wanting to write books that you didn't see. And that was why I really liked Birdie when I first read it, was because I also did not have the best relationship with my mother, and I had other mothers who took care of me. And I really loved that idea. And so my question was, basically, like, what other topics do you want to cover that you haven't seen in other books that you still want to see on the shelves?
There's sort of flipped sides of the same coin. The next book that I'm working on is called The Grief Eaters, and it's 4 generations. Japan, either and great grand and great grandchild, great grandparent and great grandchild. Within this, the great grandparent is actually physically responsible for eating the grief of the family. It's a ceremony. So that's part of it. The second person in the, well, I'll just skip to the end. The last person in the line, the Japan, is a grandchild who is a stand-up comedian. They're eating grief in that way. So that's the piece. I want to talk about how it is that you can eradicate grief or live with grief or put grief in the trunk, drive to a second location. But my end goal, I think, is to write about Indigenous joy. And to do so convincingly, I don't think I can do so convincingly right now. So I'm not a joyous person right now. And I don't know that I have been in my life and a joyous person, but I think that I have the possibility and potentiality of great joy because I didn't know I had the potentiality and possibility of that great love. So I want to talk about how we live with grief and manage to be happy with that around, because I think that in the same way that the elder said to me, there is no Cree word for love. She said, there is no word for that romantic love. When my sister passed, we didn't know how to grieve her. We didn't know what it would look like to be people who were following tradition or contemporizing pain. We didn't regularize the understanding of how to live when somebody you love had passed. And we didn't know what that ceremony would feel like. So we built our own. And I think that that's what I do, because I'm 3rd generation urban, because I don't have access, because lots of us don't have access to all of it. And some of us have access to stuff that is not our truth, and we've made it our truth. I guess what I'm hoping that I do in my work is find a way to regularize and make normal Indigenous joy and have a conversation about how it is that you can live with grief as an entity, but it's not a drowning. So that's the kind of the next stuff that I want to do. I also have, I've done a story for Kelly Lake from our community, Sâkihitowin, where we got kicked out of Jasper National Park and sort of moved up to one of our hunting areas and took that over because we didn't want to be found by the Treaty Commission. We wanted to keep our ceremonies and keep our language. And I've tried to rewrite the story of, or write the story of how the stars looked in Jasper on that night. And I've actually got a mapping of what that looks like and how the stars look the day that the book is published. And I'm explaining to kids the ceremonies that we have had along the way that kept us tied to those stars. And I hope at some point that I'm able to get that done as well. And I don't feel that I'm a children's writer. I just, when my nephews came to live with me, I thought, there's no way to explain all this to them in one thing. They came to, we have a cultural camp every year. Jasper makes room for 6 or 7 communities or nations to utilize the space and have ceremony and gatherings. I took my nephews there one year and they helped build, sat in, and took down the sweat lodge. And I thought, they're going to be able to do this. They'll learn that and they'll understand that. But those old stories that people are telling in Cree, they're not going to understand them for a while. And so I wanted to be able to give them a story that they understood. So I'm working on that too.
Thanks. Thank you.
Couple more questions? We have time for a couple more still, yeah.
When did you first see yourself in a book?
That's hard. That's hard. Because like, I would have been much older by the time that I saw Half Breed. And Half Breed would just be understanding somebody who is living on the borderlands and having access to that, but it's, it's embarrassing to say it now, but I remember watching Buffy St. Marie on Sesame Street thinking, oh, there we are. I remember watching Jessie on the Beachcombers and thinking, oh, there we are. And sort of trying to find places and spaces. But for me, it was always people who lived in between, people who were finding their way. I think I mentioned yesterday the book Flowers for Algernon, where a person had an artificially enhanced IQ and then they slowly lost it. And Black Like Me, yeah, the person who actually made their skin black to be able to live the Black experience. But while none of that is real, being able to see that people could experience that in between space, to me, always seemed really important. And I think that it has, my mom told me when we were growing up that there is no heteronormativity, that everybody, she didn't have the language, but she said, everybody's a little bisexual, Tracy. But I grew up in a household where this was the norm, that this was the conversational piece, that we just understood it, or not even a conversation. And I just sought out any sort of literature, movies, TV, Charlie's Angels. I was looking for anything that sort of resonated with that. And so that, and then when I got to the United States and I saw Maya Angelou's work, I got a hold of it first when I was in my mid-20s. That made me feel like I was seen and understood, and there were parts of my upbringing that felt like they had been verified. Makes sense? And parts that didn't fit at all. But there's also a book by a legal scholar, I'm not going to remember his last name, Derek Bell, called Faces from the Bottom of the Well, where he's talking to his ancestors. And to me, one of my grandfathers was, he worked in the Native Court Worker Program. And as that worker, he gave me copies of the WWRs, the Western Weekly Reporters. And I remember looking through those and thinking, this is not my ancestors. So the part of me where people say, how can you be a law practitioner and a writer at the same time? It's the same thing. I'm just looking for some truth that resonates.
Very much. I have, is there a question just that you're burning to ask?
London Fly, thanks for
Yes,
asking.
they are. They actually are. Nice. Yeah.
I don't have a question, but I have a moment when you're doing your reading and you're like, I hate people who laugh at their own jokes. Ha ha ha!
I
And
know.
I thought that was like the perfect moment for the book. And then I saw this the mirrors when you have reflections that keep on, and I was just like, that was a moment of joy for me.
Thank you.
When I did it with that Anista, it's really nice to hear you and to the humor that comes out. Yeah, I live in a retirement living place now, and they always comment on whatever table I sit at, there's going to be a lot of laughter. And it's just sort of natural, I think, to us. I think I think it shows joy, and I think it shows love. I've lived in a place where, as I say, there's a lot of seniors, and some people don't have too many people that visit them or things like that. But so just being with them, talking to them, laughing with them. They always look at Melissa. Some people do just for kicks. They go, they know darn well they love it. But anyway, it's so nice to hear you. Then maybe you get in with the yeah, that's it, the Sâkihitowin. Sâkihitowin. And that's one of the first words I taught Sheila, you know. I mean, Sheila's pure love, you mean, there's your expression right there. Yeah, and so it's been wonderful to know her, and I get to all these wonderful book launches now. I'm learning a lot that I, you know, I am a teacher, a professor, but I didn't come to many book launches. But I find there's so many this year of Indigenous writers that I just love. I get all the books, and I enjoy them all. And I'm looking forward to this because being Cree, you know, I think we're just funny.
Can't believe I said the F word in front of Bernard Curtis.
Oh, no, don't worry.
It's got the odd F-bomb.
We're also smart.
Oh, I know. Thank you so much.
I just want to ask you one very quick last thing, and that's, no, it's not even asked. We have to be fools for love. I think that's what we have to be, in all its beautiful complexity and diversity and color, and this book is so much color. Thank you for writing it. Thank you for putting grief in the passenger seat. I can't wait till grief is in the trunk. And then book 4, I don't know what you're gonna do with grief, but a chuck, maybe.
Grief won't even be like this.
Hey, that's awesome. But Ginana Skeleton and Sâkihitowin.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for coming over. It matters to me that you show up, and I'm glad that you did. And I hope that you'll take it from the library, steal it, put it, not from here. Steal it, put it on a bus, put it on a bench. If you like it, tell Goodreads. If you don't, tell no one. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.
To the folks watching online as well.
Yes, thank you so much, everybody, for being here, both in person and online. We're going to move along to the signing portion, as I said, which will take place at the table to my right. Big thank you again to HarperCollins for making this evening a reality, for Shelagh Rogers for being here hosting. Let's give another round of applause. And then, of course, another huge, big, warm thank you to Tracey Lindberg. Another time, just a moment to turn on the music and to clear some of those chairs, but please feel free to have a copy of your book signed before you visit the cash desk. But like I said, so long as you pay for it before you leave, that'll make it happen. All right, thank you all, everyone, so much. Thank you.